right. Let's get this show on the road. Here we are. All right. I think everything's in order. Yes. Hi. Greetings, adventurers. Welcome back. Um, yeah, I know it's been a while since my first stream, but as I said in the first one, my schedule is kind of all over the place. So yeah, forgive me. But we'll be doing our second stream now, continuing from where we left off. Yeah, if you'd like to know where we are, feel free to watch the last video. I'll quickly surmise though this time just for what we'll be going through today. So right, as I said in the last video, we will be building a Dungeons and Dragons campaign from the ground up during these streams, and yeah, you'll be getting to see me write it from basically beginning to end. So last time we talked about sort of the lore and the general premise. I didn't want to go through a whole lot of the lore, and I still won't. If you're interested, the book's available. All the lore is available. You can read it yourself. I'll explain it when it's relevant, maybe. But yeah, we're just gonna kind of soldier on because I'll be here forever if we have to just read the whole book again. But anyway, so the premise of this campaign again is that the Titans who are imprisoned in the underworld are getting free. Their bonds are beginning to weaken and they're breaking free as a result of the god Clothis having left the underworld some 30 years ago to deal with some other lore relevant things. But we'll get into that. The consequences of that really kind of I mean, we'll get a little bit into that. At least I hope we will. I have plans to as the campaign moves along. Just some hints of that, the past consequences of what's been going on, and also like how it relates to the current goings on. But we'll talk more about that later. Um, I believe last time we left off, we were talking about the cults of the Titans specifically, and just what they're like. And so yeah, the premise will be that the Titans are going to escape. They have these cults that worship them and are trying to spread their influence across Theros. They're going to get increasingly more powerful as the game goes along. But the only way to stop them is to reseal the Titans again, and for that the players need to go and get these links of this ancient mystical chain that if they take it to this nexus point called Nixos, they can rebind the Titans again. So the entire campaign is going to be about them going around and collecting these chain links. But yeah, what we're doing today is we're just talking about our villains, our enemies here, because they're going to be the foundation for everything. They're going to be every problem is going to relate back to them somehow, or like every problem along the main story. We're going to have some side quests and things where that's not the case, but anyway, they will be our main nemesis. So let's go through them. And I believe I read this first part before, but I'll read it again. And I've actually already done. Last time we were going through just these paragraphs on the cults of the Titans and sort of refining them, changing the wording a bit. I off stream I've already done that, and I'm pretty happy with what I have here. But I'm going to read through it just for just so you can see it. And hey, maybe there'll be some things that we'll correct, and then from there we'll move on. So let's begin. Cults of the Titans. So most servants of the gods of Theros wish to emulate the forces of nature that their patron god represents or expand the influence of the ideals that they embody. Worshippers of the Titans, however, only seek to sow chaos and pervert the natural elements, limiting them only to aspects of destruction and madness. These cults also strive to emulate their masters by seeking only the power to tear down everything they see. This includes morals, social structures, governments, and the very laws of nature. They wish to reduce the existence of mortals to what it was before the gods were born, an existence plagued with endless conflict and fear. They do this in return for promises of power over the fearful, cowering. Oh, sorry. I'm not putting the right inflections on some of this stuff. I'm not like, in case you can't tell, I'm not like very good at like this kind of reading. Uh, uh, Hopefully I'll get better as this goes along, but bear with me. They do this in return for promises of power over the fearful, cowering mortals that will inevitably remain, as well as promises of immortality offered to them by the Titans. Their strength has grown to the point that they can now choose oracles to carry out their plans, speaking to them in the form of dreams from their ever weakening prison. Yes, it's a little bit. I wanted to make the Titans a little bit have a little bit of that cosmic horror Lovecraftian vibe. I've DM'd games of Call of Cthulhu in the past, so it's something that I'm already familiar with. But moving on, in truth, the Titans care nothing for these mortal servants and use them only as a means to an end, with no intention of fulfilling their promises. But still, they speak to mortals and order them to amass followings, knowing that the more chaos they can sow in the plane of Theros, the faster their bonds will weaken and they can be freed. The Titans and their ilk most often tempt the broken, the wronged, and the wicked with the power to strike out against and dominate all who oppose them. The Titans represent the worm in the apple, a hidden corruption that grows stronger over time as the natural order decays. Secret cults spring up, institutions are debased, and the fundamental laws governing the seasons begin to weaken. As the Titans' bonds grow weaker, their corruption grows into a second form: madness. Cultists, either sooner or later, sink into insanity, lashing out at everything around them or destroying themselves in cataclysms of their own making. Ruin rules in the minds of the Titan cults, as the forces of nature and magic become instruments of destruction. A world in which the Titans triumphed would exist only as an everlasting royal of natural disasters and an endless series of horrific massacres. So yeah, basically, no matter what type of character you are trying to play, you're pretty much going to want to put a stop to that. And no matter which god you worship, you're pretty much going to want to put a stop to that. Even if you worship Mogus, he's still not going to like that idea. He might a little bit, but not when the Titans are doing it. He wants to do that. Still, some mortals in Theros remain susceptible to a Titan's call. Those who feel betrayed or abandoned by the gods. Those whose iconoclastic beliefs have turned to hatred. Those whose minds are broken and therefore open to insinuation and dark whispers. These are the servants of the Titans, and they can cause immeasurable harm if they are not exposed and rooted out. Although destruction is the unifying principle of the Titanic cults, those that serve these dark beings don't necessarily adhere to that goal in a conventional manner. Only the most unbalanced minds seek destruction for its own sake. Instead, the servants of the Titans seek power through destructive might in a way that heralds the return of their specific masters and strikes fear in the hearts of others. This can take the form of elemental magic, magic involving darkness and undeath, or magic that manipulates blood and flesh. Each cult also greatly respects the power of the sword, both as a tool of destruction and persuasion. The cults operate independently of each other, each believing that its favored titan is the most powerful and most worthy of worship. Rank-and-file members of the cult of Uro, for example, sneer at the cult of Kroxa, and the idea that anyone could see something worth worshipping in a being of great eternal hunger. On the Only the best educated or most magically gifted members understand that a unifying principle underlies each Titanic cult. Even then, they believe that their Titan should reign supreme. Now, this is going to be important. So, yeah, we have these four cults, and they are open to being turned against each other, at least periodically. It won't be anything that would take hold permanently, but I would definitely like to make some moments where, some particularly clever or particularly deceptive player characters can turn the Titanic cults against one another. Eventually, they'll stop fighting and band together, but it would be fun to be able to have them do some damage to each other and give the players an advantage in some specific scenario they're doing as a result of that. So we'll definitely keep that idea in our back pocket. And now on to the specific cults. The cult of Scotha. Scotha is the Titan of Eternal Darkness. And yeah, I think I went over a bit of these symbols last time. Yeah, and I just made these. We'll get into more of them. But yeah, I made this one. It just kind of looked like a skull to me. It kind of looked pretty good. Uh, and it looked like, yeah, I wanted these symbols to be very simple, something that could be, carved or painted or like drawn by someone who's kind of dumb. Like it can't be a complex image because we need to like have groups of brutes leaving it in places. or even like carving it into their skin as a scar. We'll get to that. But so yeah, a simplicity of the symbols was important, and I think at least with this one I captured that. You can be the judge, I suppose. But anyway, the cult of Scatha, Titan of eternal darkness, worships the inevitable doom that comes for all things. Their master represents death, ruin, despair, and insanity, as well as the grind of time that eventually turns all to dust. Cultists of Scatha seek the power to destroy not only the works of civilization, but the very hopes and dreams of mortals, demonstrating to all the utter futility of resistance. To this end, the Scatha cultists mainly employ magic that creates darkness, disintegrates objects both living and non-living, and forms ice as cold as the void of nothingness. They are also known to practice spells that manipulate the mind and cause those who oppose them to flee in terror at the sight of them. Oh yeah, full disclosure with a lot of these, when I'm talking about magic that they used, I don't have any particular spells in mind. Um, in fact, this might change slightly once we start getting into that, but like I'm not thinking about it too much at this stage. I'm just sort of trying to illustrate a general feeling that we have here. Because when the main purpose of this is whenever we need a villain for a scenario, we can just look back at this and know what these people are like and what they do, and we can create enemies and whole scenarios around this as long as we have this framework. Yeah, moving on. Aside from the six civilized races of Theros, that being humans, Leonin, satyrs, tritons, centaurs, and minotaurs, this cult also sometimes is also sometimes joined by the returned, uh, though only those that Scatha has deemed worthy to speak to himself. The returned, again, in case for anyone who doesn't know, are a certain specific type of undead in Theros that have to go through a specific ordeal in order to become undead. But they are particularly dangerous undead. They're not just your average zombie or your average skeleton. They're a bit more dangerous than that. Um, Anyway, these insane undead are highly susceptible to the Titan's words, and the Scatha cultists adore the fear that their returned allies inspire in their foes. Other creatures, such as doom-singing harpies, lamias, woe-striders, gorgons, demons, and even sphinxes, can be found within the ranks of the cult when at the height of its power. Each one has accepted the doom of the gods as they are now known, as well as the futility of resistance against the Titans. Now they turn their worship towards the Titan Scatha, a being that represents doom itself. So the symbol of Scatha is sometimes painted or carved at the site of the cult's greatest victories, inspiring fear in all who see it. Initiated cultists often identify themselves by showing their patron's symbol as a scar that they have carved into their own skin. Some do this to further cement their loyalty to the Titan Scatha and prove to others that they follow his edicts and seek the further doom of all. So yeah, I'm not sure if that's a terrible idea. It may just be like it's one of those things that like if you're really thinking about it, if you're starting an evil organization, is a bad idea to have every single member like have a tattoo or the symbol that they are part of the organization on them somehow. It's a pretty easy identifier. So like that's why real organizations usually don't do that. But with this one, with all these Titan cults in general, we might because we need to make things a little bit easier for our players. Um, so we can have that where we didn't know that someone was a member of a Titanic cult, and then it shows they had this scar, this symbol on their body the whole time. Oh, they were a member. It's just this thing to unequivocally prove it. Um, and yeah, I admit that I may go back on this idea, but it would make things simpler, and it might just be the better way to go. So for now, we'll keep it, and you're gonna see that repeated with the other Titan cults because I'm also gonna have them do the same thing with their respective symbols. So anyway, yeah, Scatha tactics and philosophy. The Scatha cult is the most intrigue-minded and patient of the four Titanic cults. Scatha cultists know that doom is inevitable, whether they help to further it along or not, and to truly topple a power, it is better to attack it from the inside. Thus, they admire craftiness, deception, and psychological warfare. They are deliberate and slow to act, careful to consider their plans and gather their strength before striking with precision where their enemies are perceived to be weakest. Once Scoth occultists resolve to act and they proceed forward. Wait, yes, I'm sorry. Once Scoth occultists resolve to act, they proceed forward with single-minded determination, willing to sacrifice anything or anyone in order to achieve their goal, unafraid to meet their own doom as a result. They are manipulative in the extreme, and most Scoth occultists present themselves as normal or even good-natured people. They are able to feign emotion and social nicety, but only for the sake of being duplicitous and sowing chaos in the end. They will also inevitably betray any supposed allies and double-cross any they make deals with, the second they deem it convenient to do so. They do this in the hope that they shatter the minds and drain the hopes of any who deal with them once they realize that they have been betrayed, as a way for the weak to put limits on the behavior of the strong, and they scorn empathy or friendship as weakness. So yeah, so these guys are going to be very like sort of behind the scenes sort of workers. Uh, Whenever they will be very good for like reveal where there's a twist that oh, this person you thought was helping you was really a Titan cult member the whole time. The Scoth occultists will be very good for that sort of purpose. They'd also be very good for like assassination missions. The way I've sort of written them here makes it seem like that's something they would do. Although it sort of conjures images of like Julius Caesar getting stabbed, that sort of thing, and that's fine. We can have some parallels to things like that. That would be thematically appropriate. But right in battle, Scoth occultists are brutal and straightforward. They like to overpower foes with direct assaults that break the spirits of their foes. Although, if they have the opportunity to undermine defenses or use any other duplicitous tactic to gain advantage, they unhesitatingly pursue that option as well. They are unflinching in the face of death, but only if they have sufficiently revealed their hand. Surrender is never an option for them, as doom comes for us all. Scoth occultists also prefer to live and work underground, where sunlight cannot touch them. So sort of expanding a little more on what I just said, like so, let's say they did do that. They did sort of a we're going to assassinate a political figure, and so they go into, the council, the Senate, whatever exactly they have in whichever polis they decide to do it in, and yeah, they just kind of like rush this official and stab him until he's dead. But then they wouldn't try to run away. They'd still just kind of like stay there and fight the authorities and die. Um, because yeah, and that's sort of like the necessary sacrifice of their operations. That's sort of how they work, and I guess that's maybe a reason we can have a bit of an excuse for bad organizational ideas, like having that symbol on them somewhere, because they're all kind of insane. They're all kind of insane, and we can excuse a couple things because they're all kind of insane. Um, but yeah, okay, moving on. The Oracle of Scatha. So yeah, we have a little. I have some blurbs and some stories here about because each cult is going to have a leader, and that leader will be some sort of boss of some kind. Not necessarily the final boss, maybe. Maybe we'll have all four of them at the end as the final boss. I'm not entirely sure, but we'll think about it. But the important thing is, yeah, we have this here. So, the Oracle of Scatha. A Gorgon named Ginosa Catadali leads the cult of Scatha. She wields the ancient and forgotten weapon Kamos, a war pick Scatha crafted for his followers eons ago, made from a piece of his own shadowy flesh. Ginosa is vain and cruel and extreme. I'm sorry, I'm not reading this right. Genosa is vain and cruel, an extreme narcissist who delights in exercising her control over others. She surrounds herself with the statues of her slain enemies, delighting in the fearful look in their eyes when they know their doom is upon them. Beneath this sneering self-assurance lies a bitter being who loathes herself and holds everyone around her in contempt. Excuse me. Genosa began life as a human Aristoli in Neolanton. The Aristoli, sorry, being like the nobility in Neolanton, because Neolanton still has a nobility, unlike some Polis, out there. Born into the wealthy Catadali family, she squandered her family's wealth on endless self-indulgence, seeking more questionable forms of entertainment through the years. The Catadali estate became known as a place of outrageous masquerades, bizarre banquets, and grotesque orgies. Genosa required her guests to don ugly clay masks, thus ensuring that no one's beauty would outshine her own. As she aged, Genosa turned to alchemy and the worship of Pharika to find a cure for her fading beauty. After searching for years, she found golden fruit that contained the imprisoned vitality of an immortal. I don't know how to pronounce that word. I think it's pronounced Aliad, but forgive me if I mispronounce it. Imprisoned vitality of an immortal Aliad. She used this fruit, destroying it and the life inside to create her dark, forbidden elixir. After she drank it, her imperfections vanished, and no one could resist her physical charms, and she was hailed as the greatest mortal beauty in all of Theros. However, the potion also slowly began to change Genosa's physical form, fusing her legs together into a tail and turning her hair into a mass of snakes. The changes only ceased when her transformation was complete and she had become a full-fledged Gorgon. The horror of this fate drove Genosa mad, and she fled her ancestral home. After years of wandering and hiding in one ruined building or cave after another along the western coast, Genosa felt drawn to the desolate Catachthon Mountains. Oh boy, I'm trying to pronounce that right, but it's a word that intimidates me when I look at that. Catachthon Mountains by troubling dreams and visions. Yeah, I'm sorry. The Catachthon Mountains are going to be important here because those mountains are basically going to be where all of the Titans' headquarters basically are. I'm sort of inventing that uh, those mountains are sort of right above where the Titans would be in the underworld. I'm not even sure that that makes perfect sense, but I'd kind of just at least like to get make it seem that way, where that is the central place that all of the oracles of the Titans will be going to. All of the lost temples of the Titans that they find, they'll be there. So all of the oracles are going to be going there, and all of the Titan cults are going to be there. If the players at some point, I would like to have them going through those mountains, and that's when they're going to have like their biggest run-ins with like just wandering bands of these Titan cultists. But anyway, yeah, where was I? Um, yes, she went to the desolate Catachthon Mountains by troubling dreams and visions. A long stairway beneath a ruined godless temple brought her to an ancient cavern with a hideous altar, upon which lay a war pick of Scatha. When the Gorgon claimed Kamos, her purpose finally became clear to her. She established her lair in that same dungeon and began building the cult of Scatha, Titan of Eternal Darkness. Right? I think it's pretty good. Traits. So I think this is. Oh yeah, this is for her specifically. Like many of her followers, Genosa is a genteel. Like many of her followers, Genosa is genteel and well-spoken. She delights in witty banter and pointless repartee. And sorry, pointed repartee, not pointless. Though maybe pointless actually. She is quick to make cutting remarks or jest at someone else's expense. Genosa takes great pleasure in mocking others, especially if she can do so in a clever or elegant way. Genosa's previous life had been a constant search for pleasure, but the only thing that now stirs her loveless soul is refined cruelty. She can be driven to fits of blind, unreasoning jealousy if she is outshone by another, especially if they are an urbane and attractive individual. Yeah, we just have a quick reference here, just for yeah, like if we don't want to read all that, or if I don't want to read all that, when I'm sort of referencing back to sort of the nuts and bolts of this cult and like like if I'm making enemies with them or something, or like trying to craft enemies with them. Like I don't want to read all of this. I just kind of want to have these bullet points. So, yeah, themes of the uh, cult of Scatha: darkness, ice, mind magic involving fear, insanity, deception, intrigue, and fear tactics. That's just basically everything they do is going to sort of have that gist. And as far as who their like who the rank and file members are supposed to be, because obviously, yeah, we'll have the six main races, but I'd like to like not every group should have all of those. I'd kind of like those groups to have more or less of certain groups of people that would be appealing to them, and I have that here. So for the Cult of Scotha, the six main, but not many satyrs or centaurs. So the humans, the Leonin, the Minotaurs, and the Tritons are going to be involved, but you're not going to see a whole lot of satyrs or centaurs. And I sort of have similar but different things with all the other cultists, where I think I'm not sure I've balanced it all out, but yeah, it'll be fine. But yeah, we also have returned harpies slash sirens, lamias, woe striders, gorgons, demons, doomwake giants, sphinxes, and appropriate elementals. Like maybe if they're, I'm not sure if a shadow elemental is even a thing. I haven't looked that up, but I'm sure it is. But maybe we'll throw some things like that in there. Maybe ice elementals could work, that sort of thing. And yeah, again, none of this is set in stone. We'll just see what we can do with all of this and how it plays out. So, uh, excuse me, let me adjust myself in my chair here a little bit. There we go. Okay, the Cult of Scotha, or sorry, Croxa. We just got through the Cult of Scotha. Excuse me. All right. Cultists of Scotha, Titan of Death's hunger, worship greed, lust, and gluttony in their purest, most primal, and most destructive forms. These cultists delight in the awesome power of flesh, blood, sinew, and bone, as well as all the ways that it can be manipulated to great lengths by even the most basic of needs. Crocs occultists only ever want one thing: more. They seek to emulate their master through indulgence in pure hedonism, spreading a message and philosophy that mortals should take what they want in the immediate moment and give absolutely nothing back. The Crocs occult appeals to those who wish to live in a state of truly reckless abandon, the only thought on their mind being how to satisfy their next animalistic whim. Some of their cultists are former worshippers of the last god of revels. Sorry, the lost god of revels. That would be Xenagos, who, according to my timeline, was the whole business involving him was about 30 years prior to this. That's actually a big reason why the Titans' bonds are weakening. Uh, but anyway, yeah. So some of the but now that Xenagos is gone, those who worship the god of revels are attracted to the new cult of eternal hunger. Sorry, death's hunger. Now seeking to aid in the destruction of the pantheon itself after hearing the Titan's call. Multi-headed creatures such as chimeras, cerberi, and hydras are used as tamed pets by the cultists. They like to ride flesh-mad steeds into battle and have allies among cyclopses, demolochs, and catoplebases. Or catoplebas, is that how you say it? These are some fancy words. Croxocultists mutate and mutilate their own bodies and craft flesh golems, as well as other abhorrent perversions of nature. Yeah, I kind of like the idea of them like if you know anything about like Warhammer or something like Chaos cultists, they'll get like mutations. They got like a crab claw on one arm or like a scorpion tail or something like that. I'm not quite sure how feasible a lot of that is, but it would be interesting to have some, at least maybe some like high-ranking or special cultists of Croxa who are like that. Um, the symbol of Croxa is sometimes painted or carved at the site of the cult's greatest victories, inspiring fear in all who see it. Yeah, so this is a similar paragraph to what I had with Scotha. You're going to see this more. I'm still going to read it out because it's still like, while it might be a little redundant, I still think it's kind of important that we have it in each section, just in case we ever read it, one of them on its own. Um, Initiated cultists often identify themselves by showing their patron symbol as a scar they have carved into their own skin. They do this to further cement their loyalty to the Titan Croxa and prove that they too wish to devour the world, quote unquote, by pursuing an endless road of hedonism and greed. So, tactics and philosophy. Crocs occultists are notably impatient, impulsive, and volatile. They understand the value of striking fast and striking hard, penetrating enemy defenses before they could even be set up to repel them. Like a starving man looking for food, the Croxa cultists are quick to sense an opening and then act to exploit it as if their further survival depends on it. The philosophy of might and opportunism means that the cult of Croxa is the most unpredictable of the four titanic cults. Croxa cultists eagerly seek out prizes both big and small and use their hoards of ill-gotten gains in rituals of untold debauchery. In combat, cultists Crox occultists excel at skirmishers. They value raw strength and opportunism, rarely making us. I already said that. It could be said again. Rarely making a stand in one place for long. Instead, they feign retreats, regroup, and launch new attacks, wearing down their forces like they are eating away at them. Almost all Crox occultists have some knowledge of healing, be it practical or magical, or have some form of regenerative abilities or spells. See, again, I want it to be all about the flesh. That's what they like. They regenerate, they mutate, they do all that sort of stuff. That would be some really nice flavor for them, I think. Yeah. Now the Oracle of Croxa. The Leonin and former sailor Grax leads the Croxa cult. He wields the Titan's weapon Sulvizo, a trident imbued with the essence of Croxa, fashioned from one of the Titan's own teeth. He is a sullen man who says little, letting his actions speak for him. He believes he has been wronged by the gods and hates all people except those as broken and unfortunate as himself. Grax also despises weakness in others. Grax was born in a village called Shallow. What was that I just said? Shallow. That once stood near Hunter's Crossing, which is near the Nessian Wood. His parents both having left Oreskos long ago for reasons he was never old enough for them to explain to him. So Oreskos is the plains where most Leonin live. At a young age, he lost his family to attacks from the forces of Xenagos, the devils slaughtering almost everyone he knew. Grax cursed the gods for their inaction, and when bandits came by later to scrounge through the wreckage of the village, they found the young orphan and conscripted him to service. Not long after, he was sold to a band of pirates who roamed along the Meletian Bay, and Grax was forced into a brutal indentured servitude that was barely better than being enslaved. Uh, sorry, I see. Ailseid? Is that how it's pronounced? Okay, Ailseid. All right, I'll pronounce it like that way from now on. Sorry, I haven't been paying attention to the chat until now. Hello, everybody. Welcome. Um, where was I? Yes, indentured servitude that was barely better than being enslaved. His unwilling service came to an end when the pirates encountered a fierce storm and their ship was smashed upon the rocks. Grax was knocked overboard, but managed to grab hold of a section of the ship's floating wreckage, using it as a makeshift raft. For days he drifted in the ocean until a shark attacked his raft, biting him and ripping off his left arm. Death seemed imminent, but Grax summoned his strength and grabbed hold of the shark, digging both his claws and teeth into the great beast until he bit a chunk clean off of it as well. Death metal. Grax then grabbed his arm from the mouth of the dead predator and used it to sustain himself as he continued to drift in the Siren Sea. I know. I guess he could have eaten the shark too, but sharks don't have a whole lot of meat on them. So, from what I understand, so I guess maybe he could have eaten the fin. Let's not do that. Let's not talk about that subject. Um, his arm was eaten to the bone before Grax finally sighted shore. The only clothing he had was tied to his stump of an arm in an attempt to stop the bleeding. Grax still believes that the gods had decided he die that day, but he survived, as the gods' will can always be defined simply by a mortal with the strength and will to do so, according to him. Grax felt power in the flesh he consumed, and from that day forward devoted himself to learning the secrets of it. Soon after, he became aware of the call of the Titan that invaded his dreams, and it called him on a journey towards the Catchathon Mountains. Catachthon Mountains. Fuck. Never gonna get that. Grax's vision led him to the secret waters beneath one of the great cliffs in the mountain range. He found a hidden cavern temple on whose altar laid a powerful magical trident. Sensing its power, Grax took up the weapon, and saw the path ahead of him as clear. He began to call his cults to join him there and aid him in the worship of Kroxa, Titan of Death's Hunger. Yeah, traits. So Grax is thin and looks skeletal and emaciated for a Leonin. His fur and mane are also a matted, unkempt mess. So yeah, for this Grax character, I was sort of thinking like a Scar type of like from the Lion King Scar type of character, except instead of a scar, he's got a missing arm. Uh, but yeah, he's very like thin and emaciated. Yeah. Grax has an artificial arm in the shape of a crab's claw that he has grown from the stump of his new arm via his own twisted flesh magic. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, he doesn't have a missing arm. He just has a crab claw instead. Yeah. I'd like to. Again, we may get rid of that idea. I'm not sure quite how feasible that is, but we'll see. It's a cool looking idea, a cool sounding idea. We probably gonna keep it. Um, he never uses two words when one will do. He believes that anyone addressing him with courtesy is either insincere or subtly mocking him. Crox's oracle's primary motivation is retribution. The world has been cruel to him, and he intends to see it consumed by the worst it has to offer. Grax seems to stand in contrast to the rest of his followers, as he remains thin, humorless, and secluded. His desire for revenge is the only thing that brings Grax passion. So yeah, he's sort of like the way that he's able to lead this group of like kind of stupid, reckless hedonists is because he is not that way at all. He stands in contrast to that. Um, but yeah. So again, for the quick reference, we have themes of flesh, blood, weakness, and exhaustion, growth, physical buffs. Sort of, they might have like a lot of abilities relating to that. Oh yeah, like drinking, drugs, fighting, sex. Those just sort of like debaucherous things that you could indulge in. And for the troops, yeah, six main, but not many Tritons or Centaurs. We got some, yeah, as mentioned before, we got Fleshmad Steeds, Chimeras, Cerberi, Hydras, Cyclopses, Demolox, giant spiders. The God Hunter Octopus is also something that caught my eye that has a lot of mouths on it, but I think there may be some lore reasons why we can't use that. Um, appropriate elementals like flesh golems and catoplebas. Yeah. So we'll have all those involved. Um, and again, yeah, much like the last cults, these are all just ideas. We will see what works and what exactly we can use where. Moving on to the third cult, the cult of Flage. The followers of Flage, Titan of burning wind, worship the destructive power of fire in all its manifestations. They seek the power to burn away the corruption of both civilization and nature with volcanic eruptions, forest fires, heat waves, and droughts, creating a wasteland of ash and cinders ruled by fire alone. Flage cultists believe the world and all of its people are wicked and malformed, and they consider it a sacred duty to purify everything around them by reducing their surroundings to smoking cinders. The cult of Flage appeals to those drawn to destruction for its own sake. Creatures with ties to red mana, because again, we're in Magic the Gathering, our universe of Magic the Gathering, are most likely to take up this reckless philosophy. Even non-intelligent monsters sense the reckless lust for destruction lurking in the hearts of these fire cultists and consider Flage worshippers to be their allies. The symbol of Flage is sometimes painted, carved, or burned at the site of the cult's greatest victories, inspiring fear in all who see it. Cultists will often identify themselves by showing their patron's symbol as a scar that they have branded into their own skin. They specifically like to brand this cult. Uh, some do this to further cement their loyalty to the Titan Flage and prove that their desire for misspelled fiery destruction is absolute. Tactics and philosophy. So, the Flage cultists are impetuous, hot tempered, and violent. They aren't akin to mindless savages like some would describe the Crocs occultists to be, as their impetuousness also encompasses fiendish inventiveness and a drive to devise new tools for their mad cause. They are masters of fire and forge, taking captives to work in their infernal foundries. Flage cultists see themselves as being at war, primarily against the corrupt world they seek to burn, but also against the other titanic cults. Conquest and enslavement of the weak as necessary steps in bringing about the burning chaos they intend to wait. Conquest and enslavement of the weak are seen as, I should say, I should have said, seen seen as necessary steps in bringing about the burning chaos they intend to unleash on the world. Flage cultists are clever, impulsive, and creative. They usually see themselves as smarter, quicker, and more capable than others they meet. Flage cultists dislike open battle when they do not have a clear advantage. Tactics of deception, ambush, and hit and run strikes provide the not the Uro cultists. Made a mistake there. The Flage cultists with opportunities to prove themselves smarter and more resourceful than their opponents. Infiltration and indirect attacks and indirect attacks to weaken opponents. Attacks to weaken an opponent before striking the final devastating blow. It's clearly the superior attack. Yeah, okay. Sorry, let me just read that again. Infiltration and indirect attacks to weaken an opponent before striking the final devastating blow is clearly the superior tactic, according to the cult of Flage. So, the Oracle of Flage. Though all-consuming ambition and desire to punish all who ever thwarted... Sorry. Again, I'm sorry. I'm just not reading things right. Start it over. Actually, no, I did read it right. It was just the wrong word. Though all-consuming ambition and desire to punish all who ever thwarted her dreams, the satyr Diavola, or Ember, as she was known as before, has risen to leadership of the Burning Wind cult. Beneath her refined exterior is a steel edge of scorned pride. Underneath her hard pride lies a desire for murder and mayhem. Diavola harbors a fierce hatred for all those who think themselves superior to her, and she stops at nothing to make them see her as a figure to be feared and respected. Diavola was born and raised in the crushing poverty of Akros's poorest quarter, armed with only her cunning and her intelligence. In her youth she learned to dance for coin, and slowly worked her way from the wine sinks of the laborers' districts to the elegant chambers of the city high class. She mastered minor fire magic to distinguish herself from other dancers, and incorporated flame into her routine. Her talents grew, and soon she caught the eye of a member of the Lectoi named Apisto. The Lectoi is also the Akros nobility. Soon after, she became his mistress. But even as she enjoyed the gifts he lavished upon her, Diavola hated Apisto for seeing her as a mere trophy. She left before long, robbing Apisto of a small fortune in jewelry and setting fire to his palace for good measure. She left before long. Oh, sorry. Diavola fled to Setessa, but her former lover's agents soon found her on the road. After reclaiming their wagon of gold, they beat Diavola nearly to death, throwing her limp body into the cart as well to be taken back to Apisto alive. She narrowly managed to escape after creating a clever and fiery distraction. After hiding out in the forest and barely surviving for days, dreams and visions in her sleep compelled Diavola to seek out a lost dungeon in the Catachthon Mountains. I have one more try at this, I think. And she began to slowly make the long journey there. On the altar of a forgotten volcanic temple, she found the mace of Anno, imbued with the power of the Titan Flage. Armed with this powerful weapon, Diavola resolved to establish a new chapter of her life and wage war against the corrupt world she forever struggled against. The Titan Flage called more followers to her, forming her cult beneath the slumbering volcano. Traits. Diavola is an extraordinary manipulator. She collects allies and followers with her wiles, using them as she needs and discarding them the moment they lose their usefulness. It's a testament to her natural talent that many of her victims are pathetically eager to bask in the glow of her attention again if she discovers she needs something else from them. While Diavola puts on airs the heirs of a rich noble, she despises those raised with great wealth, and her sensibilities favor the coarse. Yeah, I'm not sure if it's just like she'll swear like a sailor, or like she just like has a lot. She likes a lot of sick jokes, probably involving fire. That would make sense. Diavola is ambitious above all else, and as undisputed master of the Burning Wind cult, she intends to make the cult of the Titan Flage the strongest and most feared cult of all. So yeah, the Flage cult's pretty straightforward. They like fire and basically everything that comes with that. Themes: fire, wind, rage, lava, forge, industry, invention, and ash is just kind of what I put on. Wind, though, should kind of be a minor thing. I guess they're called the cult of the burning wind, right? So I guess maybe wind should be a big part of it. But we also have the cult of Uro right below them. I also wanted wind to be a big part of what they do. Maybe they can both just do wind. I'm sure it's not that big a deal. But yeah, for their troops, the six main, not many Tritons. That makes sense. Tritons like the water, not the fire too much. Or Leonin. They like, yeah, monstrous anvil rots. So like, being like an anvil rod is like a living. It's like a Theros robot, basically. It was like a living being made in a forge. Um, Red dragons, Oreids, two-headed Cerberus, giants, phoenixes, and appropriate elementals like fire and lava. Sorry, not fear in lava. Fire. Lava. And lastly, our last cult, moving on to the cult of Uro. So, and I said that I was going to make a better symbol for these guys. I haven't yet. I do want to make a better symbol. This one looks like a roadmap. I don't. It seemed fine at the time. I don't know, but I'm gonna make a different symbol for this uh, next time. So the followers of Uro, titans of nature's wrath, worship the destructive power of wind, water, and earth, believing that those who venerate Uro gain the power to irreparably punish those who have wronged them. More so than the members of the other cults, Uro cultists see their beliefs as a means to an end. Destruction for its own sake isn't particularly interesting, but destruction as an expression of personal freedom or to enact revenge, that's a different story. The cult of Uro appeals to those who share their appreciation for the forces of nature and who can harness it themselves. Naiads and dryads, as well as those who love to summon elementals of earth, water, and air. Predatory or fierce winged creatures of many kinds, like griffins or chimeras, that would otherwise resist training, may call the Uro cultists as allies and cooperate with them. Pegasi and hippocamps are frequently used as Uro cult steeds. The symbol of Uro is sometimes painted, carved, or physically shaped with the elements at the site of the cult's greatest victories, inspiring fear in all who see it. Cultists will often indirectly I sorry, not indirectly. Cultists will often identify themselves by showing their patron symbol as a scar that they have carved into their own skin. Some do this to further cement their loyalty to the Titan Uro and prove that their loyalty to the destructive power of nature is ironclad. Tactics and philosophy. In battle, Uro cultists launch sudden, overwhelming assaults. They throw themselves into reckless attacks with no regard for their own lives, seeking to cause as much damage as possible before falling. They are fearless and would rather die fighting amongst a mob of enemies than retreat a single step. Much like the unrelenting forces of nature, they want their enemies to feel as if they cannot be stopped, only weathered through and appeased. Followers of the cult of nature's wrath tend to be the most prolific magic users from among the titanic cults, favoring the elemental magic related to water, wind, and rock. An artificially created earthquake, tornado, or tsunami is always an acceptable alternative to a frontal assault. They may even unleash all three upon a target that they have a particular incentive to destroy, keeping up an unrelenting attack force until they either receive an offer of surrender, or total annihilation. Let's see, or achieve total annihilation. Uro cultists seek out high places for their strongholds whenever possible. Although they value subterranean spaces with wide chasms or lofty vaults, places where flying is possible are mandatory, and access to the sea or some large body of water, of water, not if water, is most often preferred. The Oracle of Uro. The Triton Theros leads the cult of Uro. Tall and slender, Tithras speaks to his people in a whisper that sounds clearly in the ears of all in his presence. Tithras regards his followers not as cultists, but as his noble subjects. Before them he is prophet and king. Musicians and courtiers amuse and flatter him, and warriors mounted on Pegasi serve as his honor guard. Tithras grew up in the ruins of a great sunken castle in a village called Parasa, deep below the Siren Sea. Surrounded by tales, histories, and tomes of magic, he passed his early years playing games, practicing enchantments, and imagining himself as one of the few who could ascend to godhood one day. His parents sheltered him from the conflicts of Theros, and he came of age with a tender and fragile disposition. Eventually his parents decided it was time for their son to make a pilgrimage on land to engage with the dry folk. And they brought him right to the polis of Miletus. His parents then realized their grave mistake. In pampering and sheltering their son, they had raised not a young man, but a spoiled child. Accustomed to having all he desired, the prince erupted into tantrums whenever he was denied the slightest whim, and the people of Miletus could hardly endure him. Tithras felt power amongst the Tritons. Although he had become a skilled enchanter in Parasa, his people were resilient to such charms. Oh, let me just hide that a little bit. He wished to control nature's forces like the wind and waves so that he could go wherever he liked, as well as punish those who offended him. The childlike fantasies of his youth became dark ambitions, wherein, well, why is that misspelled? Wherein he imagined himself the ruler of the stormy seas and the earth and air itself. He dreamed of a voice speaking to him as if on the wind, a dark, sinister voice, who promised to teach him all he had ever desired to know. Tithras used his talents to escape Miletus and abandon his family to follow the deluded visions in his dreams. Tithras's visions led him to a strange altar in a cavern beneath the Catachthon Mountains. Almost had it. Where he acquired the spear Thylea. Driven by the voice of Uro, he dubbed himself a king and set out to find followers to rule. His enchantments helped fill the ranks of the cult of Uro with initiates hopelessly devoted to him. So traits. No one can deny Tithras's lithe gracefulness, but he also possesses a violent temper that reveals itself whenever he is denied what he wants. Tithras is prone to flights of fancy and impulsive decadence. He doesn't see himself as evil because he lacks the capacity to empathize with anyone else. Those who worship and please him are good, and those who defy him are wicked and must be punished. His wish to lash the world with storms and destruction is, at its root, a temper tantrum against the mortal societies that dared to impose their restrictions, I should say, on him. So yeah, quick references, themes of like earthquakes, tsunamis, tornadoes, lightning, and hurricanes. Their troops will have the six main, but not many Leonin and not many Minotaurs. We'll have griffins, chimeras, krakens, flood-tide serpents, naiads and dryads, many elementals like earth, water, and lightning, blue dragons, and living plants. I think I also alluded to hippocamps there as well. We'll remember that. So yeah, that's basically it. Those are the four Titanic cults that we're going to have as our main villains. And we're getting a little close to the end, so yeah, I'll just kind of talk about this a little bit more. So, I like this. I like having all of this, these not so much one enemy, but four that are all sort of working together because there's a lot of things we can do with this. As I sort of alluded to before, we have the possibility of tricking enemies into fighting each other. That can be fun. Um, we have they have a lot of different modus operandi, these cults. So what this gives us is kind of a lot of freedom. We can sort of, no matter what kind of scenario that we want to have with these cultists, by picking one of them, we can basically have that. So if we want to have a plot where there, like a purely intrigue plot that has to do with politics and assassinations and double crosses and stuff like that, the cult of Scotha would be very good for that. And we can have a lot of like secret Scotha members around because that's the way they roll. They have secret members everywhere, and they operate from the shadows, because shadow cult. And then like if we want the other extreme end, we want something where like an army is marching across the landscape and they're going to attack, a major settlement. That would be more the cult of Uro, and we can do that with them. And basically everything in between can be with Croxa or Flage. If we want sort of like something that's a little in between but a little more aggressive, we'd probably go with Croxa. Want something that's in between a little less aggressive, or maybe just a little more like the Flage is aggressive, but they're a bit more like hit and run with it. Is the point? So yeah, like something like that, we can go with Flage. So yeah, it'll give us a lot of freedom as to how exactly we approach the scenarios we make because we have a lot to work with, and we don't just have one enemy that's always doing the same thing one way, because the players, especially over the course of how many chapters we're going to have, are going to, basically figure out what to do. There's going to be some sort of dominant strategy, some sort of effective thing that will always work against every one of these cults, really. But because the players will have four to deal with, um, it'll keep them on their toes. I think in a very good way, if we do this right, anyway. But yeah, so again, like I said, we're getting close to the end, so I'll talk a little bit more about just what we're gonna do next. So this I have all written down on the sort of intro chapter for the this scenario. But the thing about the intro is I don't really want to. I want it to kind of be the last thing that we write because I'll just talk about what my general idea for it is what's going to happen is the Titans' bonds are weakening. There's a lot of uh, gods that believe that this isn't really that big a deal, essentially. That the cults that are spreading across Theros can be defeated. That the Titans' bonds aren't gonna break. The Titans aren't gonna get free. It's all under control. It's all fine. The gods that are the patron gods of the player characters are going to be the gods that say, no, we don't agree. We think that something actually needs to be done here. We need to we need to hit the panic button. We need to get the chain back. We need to reassemble the great magical chain to rebind them. We can't have any half measures. So it's going to start with each of these characters, each of the player characters are going to be lured there to a specific location, to a specific sort of like campsite that we'll have pre-made for them by one of their gods, by an omen of one of their gods. So let's say that I have a character. The only character that I pretty much know is going to be in this campaign will be a worshiper of the god Iroas. So I was thinking about having sort of a four-winged hawk lead them to this specific site. If, say, maybe we have a Fanax worshiper, that they'll have shadows guiding them. An Ifara worshiper will have the road literally twist and turn towards where they need to go. But through all of this, all of the characters will essentially end up at this one abandoned altar, abandoned shrine in the woods, basically, and it will be revealed that it used to be a shrine to Xenagos that has now been abandoned because Xenagos is gone. Um, and that will give us a great opportunity to talk about Xenagos and what happened with that and what happened to the god Clothis, because that's all relevant to the beginning of this campaign. And just to not to explain to the players that this is relevant information, but just to get it in their minds in a more nonchalant way, because it will be important information, and it's better if they hear it not knowing that it's important information. I think. But yeah, so it's the abandoned temple to Xenagos. There's just going to be a brazier there with some fresh wood in it that is not lit. And what I kind of want to happen is for the players to get there and to just meet each other. And maybe that meeting won't go very well. Maybe they'll be kind of suspicious of one another. Maybe but hopefully they won't try to attack each other. I mean, player characters usually know enough to not do that. Um, Even though I guess they could. But the point is, I really want them to just kind of wait at that camp till everyone gets there and then eventually fall asleep. Now, that will either be because they're waiting there and decide to make camp for the night, or if something dire happens and they start attacking each other, maybe we just might make them like forcibly go to sleep through the god's will, the god's magic. Um, but they're supposed to get to sleep. The brazier will light on fire as well on its own. The players will not need to do that. They will all go to sleep, and then they will have this vision of them being in sort of a dream realm. I don't know if it'll be Nyx necessarily, or just sort of a shared dream. I'm imagining it as sort of like a vast expanse of stars, but there's also like water beneath them that reflects the stars perfectly. So yeah, just this endless ocean of stars. But there's little islands that have risen out of the water, and they'll be walking along those islands. And we'll have a few like introductory challenges. We might just have, in the middle, uh, there's a pathway of islands, but on one of them there's a locked door just standing on it. Maybe you have to get through it, and maybe the players don't. Maybe they go find a way to go around it. That's fine too. Just some little rudimentary things, just to in case there's any new players, maybe just get them a little more familiar with the mechanics. And these are like no consequence challenges too. So like if they like I think I was thinking they're gonna have a chasm to leap across. If they fail to leap across the chasm, normally you have to have them plummet and take some damage, if not die. But in this case, it's like, no, we could just maybe have them take a little bit of damage. They fall into the water, and maybe like the sky just spits them back out on the island where they were standing before. And they take maybe like 1d3 damage or something, but everything would be healed as soon as they get out of the dream, so none of it would matter. And then at the very end, but I would also want them. The reason why I want to hold off writing this is because I want them to see a lot of statues and a lot of like stone imagery, and I'd like a lot of those statues to be depictions of things that will happen to them, or that they will see, or the things that they will be involved in the future. I don't want to write that until we know what they are. Um, and of course, we don't want to be too obvious about it too. We don't want to take things that are too spoilery, too you know, that'll give the players too much information. We want to know what everything is that will happen, so that we can pick out a few things and put them in there. And then at the end of that, they would uh, see the statues of their patron gods, who would then speak to them and essentially send them on their quest. Um, and then when they would, and then the end result of that is they will wake up, but they will be in a different location. Same temple, same abandoned temple, but it's in a different location. It's in the location where they need to start. Where I've decided that they need to start their adventure. Um, so that'll be the first chapter of it, and or yeah, like the introductory chapter of it. I should just call it chapter zero, and then we'll actually get into chapter one, which will involve the actual acquiring of the chain link, because we're not going to be wasting a whole lot of time before we actually know what we're doing here. There's going to be side quests and things to get sidetracked along the way. I want the characters to have personal quests. I would like each of them to sort of have something of an arc, one way or another, because I've done that in the past and that's been very successful. Um, One thing I'm gonna stop talking in a minute, but one thing I do like to always put in those sort of personal quests for player characters. I did this a lot when I was role playing. I was DMing Dragon Age. Is giving them some sort of choice, because the characters always want something like that. That's sort of a thing that I require them to have as a part of their character. You're looking for something. There's something that you want. Is it revenge? Is it an item? Is it yeah, a person? What is it that you're looking for? And then their arc will essentially come down to you can get what you want, but you'll lose something else, or you can keep that thing that's more valuable and lose the thing that you were pursuing. I like that kind of choice, and that's something. I guess maybe we won't do it for every player. That might get a bit stale and predictable, but we will at least do it once, and I'd like to have that dynamic for a few missions if we can prove if we can swing that. Some moral dilemmas. I just always love moral dilemmas. Um, if we can, but but yeah, that's basically it. And so the first chapter, which we will be getting into a little bit next time, I think, will be specifically centered around the god Krufix. I've sort of mapped this out a little bit as far as which gods we're going to do in which succession, and I think it'll work. I think it'll work, but again, like I've said, it's all up in the air. Um, but yeah, so thank you for joining me, all of you who've joined, and I think we're going to call it quits for today. But again, thank you, and I will see you next time.